The grade 9 academic course, Modeling with Algebra. The goal for today is to develop and solve your own equation. So the solving part's actually fairly easy in this section compared to some that you've done. It's the developing that's difficult. That's the skill we're working on. We're going to take sentences, word sentences, and turn them into math sentences, and it will involve an equation. So this first example, using algebra to communicate. Write an algebraic expression. So this, in this case, is not, when it says expression, that sort of indicates that it's not going to be an equation, but that represents 1/5 of a number. And something I thought I would point out to you, if it says of a is almost always a sign that it's a multiply. That's going to be the math operation that you do. Okay? That's a terrible multiple sign. So what does that look like then? 1/5 of a number. So if that number is n, it could be n divided by 5, but 1/5, this might be more, like might be the way you think of it, 1/5 times n, because 1/5 of means times. It's just that you could simplify that to look like this one here. But either of these answers are equally accurate, equally correct. Okay? So of a number. Just looking at one, if we're doing percents, this one's 25% of a number, so it's a multiply again. And you may or may not remember from doing percents in elementary school that when you have 25%, that really means a decimal, 0.25. So then when you, that's sort of similar question to up here. We're going to use n as the number, and it'll be 0.25n, right? And of course, just thinking about what that means, if n was 100, then 25% of 100 is 25, right? And that's actually a multiply. If you multiply in your calculator 0.25 times 100, you'll get 25. Okay, now we're looking at, notice the difference. This is an expression. There's no equal sign. Equation means an equal sign. So it's a math sentence with an equal sign. And so write an equation that indicates that 5 times a number is equal to 120. And so n is our number, and 5 times n equals 120. And then it says find the number, so we're actually going to solve for n. And you should know by now, hopefully, that all you got to do is divide both sides by 5. Okay? And when you do that, you get n equals 24. So that's what I mean by this unit, in this part of the unit anyways. The equations themselves to solve are really easy compared to some of the stuff you were doing. It's just that now I'm not just giving you, I'm giving you a word sentence to come up with the equation. You have to come up with the number sentence. Okay, this one. Twice a number plus 12 is equal to 40. So one side of my equation is going to have to be 40, right? And then twice a number, and we'll say that n is the number again. So let n be the number. And twice a number times 12. Twice means 2 times, right? 2 times that number plus 12 equals 40. It's almost like I wrote it just like I see it. Twice means 2. Twice the number means 2n plus 12 is my equal sign 40. Okay, I only have to find the number. So just going through the steps like we did before to get all the numbers on one side, all the letters, on one side and all the numbers on the other. So first we're going to bring the 12 over by subtracting 12 from both sides. And then you divide both sides by 2. Okay, so again, I'm thinking these are really easy compared to what we had been doing. And get n equals 14. So you'll enjoy some of the math part of this unit because it'll feel very easy compared to what we've done, but you'll have to come up with the equations. Moving on. These ones come up quite frequently. They're actually kind of fun once you figure them out. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 33. Find the numbers. I personally, when I first look at that, think that's going to be hard. But once you know the trick, it's really, really easy. You just have to remember that, first of all, consecutive means in a row, and sum means you're adding. So we're going to add 3 numbers in a row, and they have to add up to 33. Well, algebraically, what you do is if you call n the first number, the second number has to be n plus 1. And the third number has to be n plus 2, right? That's my 3 numbers in a row. They're always integers, by the way. It's not totally clear in here that they're integers, but they will be. They're not going to be decimal numbers or fractions. And just what I mean by that is, when I say n is the first number, pretend, and it's not the case for this particular problem, but if n was 1, then the next consecutive number would be 2. And that would be 1 plus 1. And then the third number would be 1 plus 2, which is 3. So my three consecutive numbers are 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so just that's in this case. Let's solve this one. Now we're saying the sum of the three numbers has to equal 33. So remembering that the three numbers must be n plus 1, and n plus 2. So I'm going to take those numbers and add them all up. Right, there's the first number, n, the second number, n plus 1, and the third number, n plus 2, and they're going to add up to 33. And I just grouped my terms. That's supposed to be an n. It looks like an m, but it's not. Obviously, everything's on n. So I have 3 n's and 3. So 3n plus 3 equals 33. Okay, solving for n, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides to get the n term by itself. And then 3n equals 30, divide both sides by 3, and you end up with the first number. That means n equals 10. So if my first number is 10, my next one must be 11, and my third one must be 12. Okay, again, I want to tell you that I know that some of you might look at that problem and you might approach it in a totally different way, and generally that's okay, right? But I am trying to teach you the skill of solving using an equation like this. So this is the solution I'm looking for right now, though I recognize that you could do it different ways. Okay, but the skill I'm testing is writing equations and solving equations, and so I'll be looking for that. This is another good one, and it has a typo. Okay, Ferd is 5 years older than Dref. These are two brothers, and the sum of their ages is 43. How old are they? Well, I guess you can see the answer over here, but we're going to use graphs to solve this one. And the first thing I'm going to say is, let's say A is Dref's age. So Ferd is 5 years older than Dref. So I could have picked Ferd to be A, my variable, but I chose Dref. And that makes Ferd A plus 5, because he's 5 years older. So you can just choose anything to be Dref. Ferd's must be A plus 5. And it says the sum of their ages is 43. So that means that, I'm just writing my givens here. Here's my equation. So Dref is A, Ferd must be A plus 5. I'm looking for A, right? And I'm going to say the sum of their ages. So there's Dref, and there's Ferd, who's A plus 5. They all add up to 43. Simplify. Collect like terms. Get all the letters on one side. So 2a equals 38. Divide both sides by 2, and you end up with A is 19. Okay? Again, if you think about it, this equation here, compared to what you've been doing lately, is nothing. It's easy. It's just kind of figuring out how to go from the words to the equation. And the only way to do that is to practice, of course. One more. Okay, Ferd has a job selling golf clubs. He earns $10 an hour plus a commission of 20% of his sales. So that tells me of. I'm gonna have a multiply. If he works 40 hours a week, how much must he sell in order to earn $1,000 in a week? So just think about it. You want to make $1,000 a week. We know how much he's going to earn per hour, and then how much he's got to make in commission to figure it out to do it. And I think probably over half of you, without ever seeing me solve this question, can figure this out, using various strategies. And there's lots of ways to do it, but let's go through the equation way, my equation way. So first of all, I'm going to set three variables. E for his earnings, and that's sort of where his goal is to get 1,000, his earnings. S is how much he has to sell, right? That's how much he has to sell at the cash register. And H is his number of hours worked, and that's going to be 40. We know that. So we're going to use graphs here, where we say, okay, his earnings is 1,000. That's how much, we want to use it. His earnings is 1,000, and his hours worked is 40. And to figure out S. Now, just be careful. Please be aware that I don't think there's any 5s in this question. I think the S looks a bit like a 5. Don't confuse the two. It's an S. So here's my equation, and let's think about why it makes sense. His earnings, he earns $10 per hour, and that's a multiply as well. So when you see a per, that means it's like an of, it's a multiply. So every hour he works, he earns $10. Plus he earns 20% of his sales. That's an S. Okay, 0.2 is the 20% of his sales. So our goal here is to find S, right? So I'm going to, in my A section of graphs, I'm going to rearrange the equation so that I can find S. I want to isolate S. So the first thing I did here, I do this, I've shown somebody this before, that if I'm looking for s, I might just take this equation and write it this way, right? This is just flipping it. It's still the same equation. I haven't actually rearranged anything yet, just writing it the other way. Then, again, I want to get s by itself, so I have to get rid of the 10h. So over here, I take away 10h from both sides. I want to get s by itself. That leaves me with this. Again, I want to get s. Now s is multiplied by this 0.2, so I have to divide both sides by 0.2. And really, that's my equation. Right there. The 0.2's cancel. Right? So s equals all this. So in the s section of grass, I'm going to substitute in and solve. So I'm going to substitute in 1,000 for E and 40 for H. So I just substitute in those numbers. Following bad maths, I have 1,000 minus 10 times 40 is 400, divided by 0.2. And that leaves me with 600 over 0.2. So he has to sell that $3,000 worth of goods in order to earn his goal of $1,000 in a week. Okay? Another example. This is with a circle. So it's saying we have a diameter of 3 meters. How much should the diameter be increased in order to quadruple the area? This one's a tough one. But the way you look at it is first you have to remember that area is pi r squared. So what I'm going to do, and what I did here, I said, okay, what is his area? If his area is, or the area, if you used the diameter of 3, that means the radius is 1.5, you substitute into pi r squared. My area right now is 7, right? But I want to find out, all it's saying then, if I want to quadruple my area, quadruple means 4 times, so I'm going to just have to multiply my area by 4 and go backwards and solve for r. Okay? So this is my area. 4 times a, 4 times 7.07 is 28.27. Okay? I want to find r, so here's my equation. And you can see we did this in the last section where you isolate and try to find an equation just for r. So you divide both sides, a equals pi r squared, divide both sides by pi, right? And take the square root. That leaves us with r equals the square root of area over pi. Okay, and you would have done, in fact, I happen to know because my daughter's in grade 7. She's done this equation in grade 7. So I know you've done this before. This is nothing brand new. So we're looking for r. So his, you take the equation, you divide, you get r equals 3. So that means the diameter is 6. So in order to quadruple the area, we had to double the diameter. And that's the answer. So by how much should the diameter be increased? It's got to be increased by 3 meters or it has to be doubled. Okay? So that one's not too bad. That's more similar to a last section question. And that was a fairly long note, and I'll let you ponder it for a bit, and that's it for today.